The Galactic Council chamber shimmered beneath artificial starlight, its obsidian walls pulsing with ambient energy. Representatives of 100 worlds sat in tiered rings, their forms ranging from crystalline serpents to gas-based floaters, all turning toward the center dais where the Zoral, Dominion's ambassador, stood tall and armored. Ambassador Cathrex raised his four-jointed arms, his segmented mandibles clicking in measured contempt. The species known as humans has violated Council Order 17 Gamma by rejecting tribute, refusing relocation mandates, and expanding militarily beyond assigned systems. As of this hour, the Zoral Dominion, on behalf of the Council, formally declares war on Earth. The announcement was met with little protest. Whispers of approval slithered around the chamber like oil on water. Humanity was young barely, too. Centuries in space, and though they had spread quickly, many saw them as arrogant upstarts. It was time, the Council believed, to clip Earth's wings before they became a real threat. Colonel Miriam Vega, Earth's envoy and the only human in the chamber, stood from her seat. Clad in a dark UTDF officer's uniform, with no weapon, no bodyguards, and not even an AI support halo, she walked alone to the platform. The contrast was striking. The towering insectoid bulk of Cathrex radiating hostility, and Vega small. By comparison, calm, unreadable. Her eyes were sharper than any plasma blade. She looked at the gathered representatives and said, "So it's war," Cathrex hissed with satisfaction. "You seem unfazed, human. You misunderstand the gravity of what's coming. Your fleets will burn. Your worlds will be sterilized. You stand alone." Vega didn't blink. "No, Ambassador. You misunderstand. We're not afraid. Not because we're stronger. Not because we think we'll win. But because you have no idea what you're waking up." Murmurs rolled through the chamber. Cathrex's voice took on a mocking tone. "You think yourselves legends already, do you?" Vega stepped closer. "No, but Earth isn't just a world. It's not just mountains and oceans and soldiers with guns. You think you've declared war on a planet. But Earth is a tomb, a lockbox. And you just rattled it." A silence fell over the chamber. Vega didn't wait for permission to leave. She turned and strode out, her boots echoing off the polished stone. She left behind confusion, skepticism, laughter. But some, particularly the older species, the ones with myths too ancient to trust, felt a chill. A warning from evolutionary memory. A whisper that maybe the humans were not the first intelligent beings to rise on Earth. Back in soul space, the skies darkened. Within hours, the Council fleets arrived at the edge of Earth's sphere of influence. Massive carriers, swarm pods, psychic lances, and anti-planet ordnance surrounded Earth like a closing fist. On Luna's surface, civilian and military observatories alike picked up strange energy readings. A pulse from the far side of the moon. Not from any base, not from any known Terran installation. It was coming from the regolith itself. Then it moved. Black shape emerged from the cratered surface, as if rising through stone like water. The size of a battleship, yet utterly silent. Smooth as obsidian, but pulsing faintly with symbols no one recognized. Earth's defense grid tried to scan it. Every system failed. Council forces, thinking it a hidden Terran weapon, fired first. The beam never hit. In the blink of a second, the strange vessel blinked across space, reappearing behind the attacker, slicing the dreadnought clean in half with an energy distortion no one could trace. No heat, no debris, just erasure. Then, as casually as it had appeared, it returned to its orbital position and waited. Panic rippled through the Council fleet. No one had seen technology move like that. Not in this galaxy. Not in any recorded war. From Earth, Vega watched through command feeds. She didn't smile, didn't gloat because she'd seen the readings. That ship, whatever it was, wasn't human. It was older, much older. The black vessel now orbiting Earth had been codenamed Phantom 1 by the United Terran Defense Force. Its presence defied every law of known science. No energy emissions, no identifiable propulsion. It simply moved impossibly fast and had already erased 3 more Council warships that approached too closely. It showed no allegiance, no communication, no purpose. Earth's greatest minds were baffled. Dr. Hannah Corrin, head of the Terran Institute for Ancient Planetary Studies, was brought into the fold after a deep data anomaly surfaced. Phantom 1's energy signature bore eerie similarities to readings gathered from beneath Antarctica 2 decades prior, readings once dismissed as seismic noise. Within hours, a Terran Black Ops team arrived at a long-forgotten facility buried beneath the Ross ice shelf. Known only to a few top-level officials, it had been sealed since its discovery in 2029. The original team had vanished after initial entry. No one had dared open it again, but war had changed everything. Accompanied by a squad of UTDF soldiers, Dr. Corrin descended into the ice. The air grew thick with static and pressure. The walls were not carved but melted as if reality itself had been folded inward. At the end of a spiraling shaft, they found it, a vault door the size of a hangar, etched in fractal glyphs that seemed to shift when unobserved. "This isn't alien," Hannah whispered, her breath misting. "It's terrestrial, but not human." A low hum pulsed through the ground. The vault clicked open. Inside lay impossible architecture, rooms that bent gravity, chambers larger on the inside than their external structure allowed. But most shocking were the preserved machines. Floating monoliths, spindly constructs with blades shaped like hourglasses, massive pylons glowing with equations written in a language no living being could comprehend. They had discovered a civilization, older than recorded time, one that had lived, thrived, and vanished before Homo sapiens ever picked up a stone. And they hadn't just built machines. They'd left instructions. Deep in the inner sanctum, a crystalline console pulsed to life. Hannah stepped forward, her neural translator attempting and failing to interpret it. But the vault didn't need language. It used memory. Images flooded her mind. Stars being born and consumed. Great machines moving between dimensions. Earth itself being seeded with safeguards. One phrase kept returning, not in words but in knowing. "We are the first. You are the last. This world is a lock." Back in orbit, Phantom 1 stirred. It reacted to the vault's awakening. And it wasn't alone. From the depths of the Pacific Ocean, another signal burst into the atmosphere, brief but unmistakable. Something else had awakened. A dormant construct hidden within the Mariana Trench, now rising. Seismic sensors registered. A continent-sized object shifting beneath the seafloor. Within minutes, additional dormant signals activated across the globe. In the Sahara, under the Siberian tundra, buried deep in Himalayan rock, and even on the far side of Mars. These weren't weapons of war, they were wardens. Guardians left behind by a civilization long gone, and humanity had just broken the seal. Colonel Vega stood in UTDF command, watching the chaos unfold. Reports from every defense station poured in, machines emerging, power levels spiking, Council forces retreating from Earth's orbit in panic. But none of these machines acknowledged Terran authority. "We didn't trigger defenses," Vega said aloud. "We woke something that doesn't know who we are." General Armin, UTDF Supreme Commander, looked grim. "Then we need to make sure it learns fast." They couldn't risk fighting both the Council and these ancient constructs. Earth would need to find a way to communicate with them to prove humanity wasn't an intruder. Dr. Corrin suggested a bold theory. What if we weren't just survivors? She said. What if we're the backup plan? The fail-safe, the first ones left behind? The Council's declaration of war had sent ripples through ancient systems built into Earth itself, not satellites. Not defense grids, but the bones of the planet. The moment they fired the first shot, those systems responded, and Earth responded. With the ghosts of gods. Humanity hadn't built these weapons, but they were the ones holding the keys now, and the galaxy had no idea what that meant. The strange machines that had begun to emerge across Earth and its surrounding systems had a name now. Wardens. They were not mere constructs. They were more like planetary antibodies, impossibly ancient, capable of autonomous decision-making, and completely unbound by human control. Their appearance wasn't coordinated by Earth's militaries or governments. They had awakened on their own, responding to the Galactic Council's aggression like a match falling into a vault of forgotten gunpowder. The Warden Protocol had begun. Across the skies of Earth, and even on Mars and Luna, enormous structures began reactivating. Monoliths that had once passed for mountains split open to reveal cores of searing light. Oceans frothed as black obelisks rose from trenches older than tectonic plates. These weren't crude defense systems, they were intelligent, reality-bending. Fortresses crafted by a civilization that had long since exited this galaxy, or perhaps this universe entirely. One such warden, designated Sentinel Aegis, hovered silently above the Pacific Rim, scanning both human and Council forces. It made no distinction between Earth's defenders and its attackers. It viewed both as threats until proven otherwise. The UTDF tried to initiate contact. Broadcasts in every frequency, light pulses, neural codes. Nothing worked. Then something shifted. A distorted voice spoke not through sound, but directly into the minds of Earth's command centers. Designate Homo sapiens. Unverified custodians. Assessing biological and cognitive lineage, fractal match. 82.7%. Probationary access pending. Colonel Miriam Vega sat in Earth's global command bunker, flanked by scientists, generals, and diplomats. The message was the first sign of hope. The Wardens didn't see humanity as invaders, not entirely. I think we're part of them, Dr. Hannah Corin whispered, poring over data streams. Genetically, structurally, we're not just their descendants. We might be their successors, their contingency. Vega leaned forward. Then let's act like it. Earth-initiated protocol Bridgefire, global data sharing operation between the UTDF and the newly discovered ancient systems. Using hybridized AI interfaces and linguists trained in alien semiotics, they managed to patch together an experimental connection with a dormant warden buried in the Andes. It woke up. And for the first time, a warden acknowledged humanity's authority. One was enough. The others began to re-evaluate. Code flowed through the global warden network, unlocking permissions. Not full control, just alliance. By now, the Galactic Council had realized something had gone horribly wrong. Their initial war fleet had been annihilated. Reinforcements were scrambled from distant systems, but even their fastest slipstream drives would take days to arrive. They didn't have days. The Warden class dreadnoughts didn't wait for full Council assembly. They acted alongside Terran vessels now retrofitted with fragments of ancient tech. These titanic war entities launched Operation Endlight, a retaliatory strike against the Outer Council staging grounds. What followed was beyond conventional warfare. In the Higner Belt, a Terran Warden hybrid ship collapsed a moon into a gravity well and used it as a slingshot weapon. In orbit around Krell V, a Warden activated a light-time distortion bubble, causing Council weapons to arrive after their own ships had already been destroyed. In the Torgathy system, a single Warden vessel erased an entire fleet by rewriting its target coordinates mid-movement, trapping them inside a feedback loop that turned them into raw radiation. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. This wasn't warfare. It was correction. Council species that had mocked humanity days before now scrambled to open negotiations. Dozens of client races broke away from the Council entirely, sending messages of apology and offers of alliance to Earth. But Earth wasn't interested in conquest. Humanity was still reeling. They hadn't asked for this war. They hadn't asked to inherit these machines. They had simply wanted peace. Colonel Vega stood before Earth's unified military leadership. "This isn't just a defense anymore," she said. "We've become the trigger for something ancient, something the galaxy wasn't meant to see again. And it's too late to close the door." Dr. Corrin stepped forward, pale. "There's one more thing," she said quietly. "The vault." It mentioned more than just protection. It mentioned containment. These wardens weren't just guarding Earth. Everyone went still. Across the stars, the name Earth had become a curse. The Galactic Council's fleets, once symbols of unchallenged dominance, were now in disarray. Their war declaration, intended as a show of force against an upstart world, had instead ignited the return of powers thought long extinct. But this wasn't just a war of machines. It was something deeper. It was retaliation. The combined human-warden alliance now moved with precision. Council staging grounds and nearby systems were targeted with surgical strikes. Terran fleets, now interwoven with ancient warden technology, were no longer bound by the limits of human physics. Ships phased across the void in controlled pulses, their trajectories augmented by space-time anchors encoded in forgotten languages. Colonel Miriam Vega, now acting as Earth's Supreme Defense Commander, stood aboard the TSV Vengeance Ascendant, a ship forged from both Terran steel and Warden alloy. Her crew operated the vessel with awe. Some systems responded only to thought. Others acted preemptively, calculating battles before they began. In the first 24 hours of Operation Reckoning, 5 major Council worlds were forced into full retreat, not destroyed, emptied. Entire populations evacuated at record speed, leaving behind cities still warm from life. But Vega's focus wasn't vengeance. It was containment. Because back on Earth, Dr. Hannah Corrin and her joint science military team had made a discovery that changed everything. Beneath the oldest part of the African continent, under cratonic layers untouched by tectonic motion for billions of years, lay something impossible, a sealed core pulsing with energy older than Earth's magnetic field. The vaults had hinted at it, something buried before the rise of the moon itself. They called it the first seed. It wasn't a weapon. It was a prison. Wardens hadn't just been defending Earth from external threats, they had been ensuring that what lay within Earth's crust never escaped. The Council's assault had triggered more than planetary defenses. Their aggression had begun weakening containment seals older than all known galactic civilizations combined. And it was breaking. Corrin stood before the projected image of the core deep underground. It's not a creature. It's not a machine. It single quotes S. Will, she said, her voice shaky. It thinks, it waits, it remembers. The Wardens had been acting on multiple fronts, destroying Council threats, monitoring planetary fault lines, and reinforcing quantum seals surrounding the seed. Humanity had inherited both the weaponry and the burden. Vega realized the cruel irony. Earth wasn't just humanity's home. It was the lid on a cosmic vault. The Council had thought themselves clever, decisive, and merciless. But they hadn't just poked the bear, they had ripped open the cage that held the wolves back. With this knowledge, Earth launched a new protocol, Project Gauntlet. No longer content to defend. Earth would push forward not to conquer, but to cripple the Council's ability to provoke another war ever again. The plan: eliminate all major Council military production worlds, shut down slipstream lanes feeding the core territories, and force a disarmament accord on every signatory race. The retaliation was swift and horrifyingly efficient. On the fortress world of Jedran Prime, orbital rings were shattered in a single coordinated strike by 3 Warden-class phase disruptors. On the shipyard world of Loxara, time dilation fields suspended the planet's rotation, freezing it in a state of temporal flux. Council transmissions filled the void, panicked requests for ceasefire, cries of misunderstanding, offers of compensation. Earth responded once. A simple broadcast, voiced by Vega herself. You declared war on Earth. Now you answer to what Earth tried to keep buried. Silence followed. Even those who had not fought neutral systems, trade syndicates, ancient observer races chose quiet compliance. No one wanted to be noticed next. Still, Vega knew this was a race against time. Each battle drew more energy from the Warden. Network energy that had once been focused solely on the containment of the first seed. Every warship deployed, every defense activated, strained the ancient systems. Dr. Corrin issued a warning from deep within Earth's subterranean core analysis station. Earth's retaliation had shattered the Galactic Council. Entire fleets were gone, homeworlds abandoned, and regional powers had surrendered before their systems could even be targeted. What had begun as a declaration of war had ended with terrified silence. But humanity wasn't celebrating, because beneath their feet, something ancient, something older than life was awakening. The first seed was no longer just a whisper in ancient vaults or a strange energy reading beneath the Earth's crust. It was now a presence. Sensors around the sealed core recorded pulses every 3 seconds, growing stronger with each wave. Reality bent slightly in its radius. Magnetic fields spun in unnatural directions. People near the deepest excavation. Teams began to experience dreams, visions of impossible skies, of stars blinking out, of a voice with no language saying only one thing: I remember. In a secure command bunker beneath the Andes, Colonel Miriam Vega stared at a live projection of the core. It pulsed in time with her heartbeat. They didn't build Earth to protect it from the galaxy, she said quietly. They built Earth to protect the galaxy from this. Dr. Hannah Corrin nodded, hollow-eyed. The first one sealed it here eons ago. A mind too vast to kill, too strong to erase. So they locked it in matter, in gravity, and they left us to guard it. Vega clenched her fists. And now we've been using the Wardens as weapons, draining the very systems that keep it asleep. A sick realization fell over the room. The war effort hadn't just cost lives. It had cost time, stability, containment. The Wardens, for all their power, were stretched thin. The more they diverted energy to combat and retribution, the less they could devote to suppressing the seed. And the seed was learning. Testing, pushing back. The skies over Earth turned gray without weather. Daylight flickered. Gravity shifted by fractions, as if the planet were breathing differently. All across the Terran colonies, people felt it. Something terrible stirred. Something ancient that did not care what species had risen above the oceans. It had only one truth. It had been, and it would be again. And then, without warning, the seed spoke. Not in words, but in impact. A tremor struck the Earth global, simultaneous. Hundreds of Warden pylons across the planet dimmed, their lights flickering erratically. Entire networks went dark. A great scar tore open across the Congo Craton, revealing a vertical shaft descending miles into glowing abyss. Above the wound, a shape began to form. Not solid, not gas. Something that didn't belong in any known state of matter. It twisted light and sound, warping thought itself. Every satellite caught the image and then died. The first seed had breached its first seal, and it was hungry. Earth's high command had no choice. The retaliation campaign ended. All Warden assets were recalled. Human fleets fell back to Sol, abandoning dozens of Victory 1 systems. The focus now was singular: reseal the seed or die trying. A desperate solution formed to activate the vessel of the First Flame, a Warden entity so massive and dangerous that it had never been woken-only monitored. Until now, buried within the lunar crust since before the moon had tidally locked with Earth, the vessel was not a ship. It was a memory of annihilation, a weaponized echo of the first ones, built to erase not enemies but concepts. It took 5 Terran command ships, 9 Warden intelligences, and a singularity core just to begin its activation. When it finally rose from beneath the lunar surface, half the moon collapsed inward. Tidal patterns across Earth shifted instantly. Oceans boiled, coastlines vanished. But it was the only hope they had left. Colonel Vega stood aboard the TSV Vengeance. Ascendant, now docked directly with the vessel's command spine. Her voice was firm, even as the ship around her groaned from proximity to the entity's power. Target locked. Engage. The vessel responded. Light bent. Time fractured. Moment, Earth no longer existed in a singular state. The seed writhed, tried to expand, but the vessel didn't fight with force. It fought with memory, with design. It reminded the seed what it was: a prisoner. Not a god. In one final pulse, the vessel collapsed the Congo rift back into itself, stone, folding like silk, atmosphere sealing, Warden pylons reigniting in synchronized harmony. The seed was silent once more, and Earth was still standing. In the aftermath, the galaxy dared not speak of war again. The Council disbanded. Dozens of species pledged non-aggression pacts with Earth, not out of diplomacy but awe. Humanity had survived, but more than that, they had remembered what they were made to be: the final wardens of the oldest. Prison in the stars. Not conquerors. Not victims. Something far worse. The end.